Essentially it goes nowhere near far enough, and basically the government's got their head in the sand totally about what needs to happen to shift Australia to a clean energy economy, and for us to be playing our role as part of the world of absolutely urgently slashing our carbon pollution. And so a massive increase in renewables is really important. I mean, Australia could be a renewable energy superpower, exporting green hydrogen to the world, really big investment in batteries, for example. But the number one thing that we need to do is to stop giving subsidies to fossil fuel companies. This budget contained $38 billion a year of subsidies, of handouts, of tax breaks to fossil fuel to keep on the burning of coal and gas and oil. So actually putting that money into renewables would be a really good start. I mean, that 38 billion compares with $1.5 billion that was put towards renewables. So we've got to slash those subsidies, get rid of those, and then it's making a commitment to say we are going to get out of the mining, the burning and the export of coal and gas and oil as quickly as we possibly can, and support the workers who are employed in those industries, and be shifting our energy production to renewable energy production, and supporting those workers in other industries as well, and transforming Australia to be towards that zero carbon future as quickly as possible.
From the bottom up, looking at what can be done. So we're not picking a number pie in the sky, we're looking one by one at the various ways in which you can reduce emissions. So that involves scaling up the safeguards mechanism that the Coalition originally put in place, measures to improve uptake of household batteries, looking at a whole range of reforms right across the economy. And when we put all of those together, that comes to 43%, which puts us in the same area as, say, Canada, which is an economy of similar size and not completely dissimilar in terms of its structure to Australia. I think there's been a lot of cheap talk in this area, but you've got to, as a party of government, put together a clear alternative plan, and that's what we've done, and that's what the RepuTex modelling reflects.
Science tells us that by 2030 we must reduce our emissions by 75%, and by 2035 by 100%. So those targets are nowhere near what we need to address the climate crisis. There's a minute amount of funding for moving towards renewable energy. We'll be pushing the next government to make sure that those targets are stronger, they are much faster. So this is the critical decade, and we can't leave any stone unturned. This is the biggest cause of the climate crisis is fossil fuels, and we want to make sure that we phase coal, oil and gas out and rely on renewables, which creates sustainable, long-term, healthy jobs for people as well. So that's what we'll be putting on the table for the next government. And we have always tried to work collaboratively with the Labor government, but also understanding that unless we address the climate crisis seriously in this decade, then we've kind of lost that battle, and future generations are going to suffer like no other generation ever has. Well, we have had pretty much a lost decade of lack of action on the climate crisis. And we have seen over the last few years alone that the climate crisis really is on our doorstep, with bushfires raging currently, with floods ravaging parts of northern New South Wales and Queensland as well. So that is a thing that is top of the agenda, because it impacts everything else. Like, climate crisis and the inequality crisis are so inextricably linked with each other, and you've got to address them together. And that's the main reason, one of the big reasons why we need to kick this government out, literally.